Hello, I'm Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priest for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, joining me today, of course, is my dear friend, Dr. Teresa Burke, founder of Rachel's Vineyard and no stranger to this program. So, Teresa, welcome to the program.
Hi, Janet. Good to be with you today.
Well, Teresa, I need to have your opinion on something that was in the news a few weeks ago, and I think our people will be very interested to hear your response. Uh, let's watch this clip from Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, where she's kind of pointing her finger and she's actually criticizing, and it is a EWTN reporter. So let's take a look at this clip in case some of our folks didn't get to see it, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to comment on it. Okay.
Following up on the sexist law, why does the president support abortion when his own Catholic faith teaches abortion is morally wrong?
He believes that it's a woman's right, it's a woman's body, and
we're gonna cut it right from where she starts. So you just said let's go to it, and then I'm gonna go to it right here.
Okay.
3, 2. Wait, volume over here. Sorry.
Following up on the sexist law, why does the president support abortion when his own Catholic faith teaches abortion is morally wrong?
he believes that it's a woman's right, it's a woman's body, and it's her choice.
Why does the president, who does he believe then should look out for the unborn child?
He believes that it's up to a woman to make those decisions, and up to a woman to make those decisions with her doctor. I know you've never faced those choices, nor have you ever been pregnant, but for women out there who have faced those choices, this is an incredibly difficult thing. The president believes their rights should be respected. Go ahead. I think we got to move on. I think we have to move on. You've had plenty of time today.
Well. You see what she did to him? Like, okay, cut. We're not giving you a chance. You can't have a baby. You got no say in this. So first of all, Teresa, she's skipping over the bases. Biology fact of it takes a man and a woman to make the baby. The woman doesn't get pregnant all by herself. But in the terms of your work for decades now with Rachel's Vineyard, this attitude that some of these on the other side have that men are not involved in this issue because you can't get pregnant. You're not involved in this issue because you're not one having that baby. What do you have to say about that, Teresa?
Well, abortion takes place in the context of a relationship. So yes, it involves a man and a woman, and the pressure and the coercion and the fears and the anxieties, and they all play a role in making women feel that they have no choice but abortion when she doesn't feel supported. So rather than say that abortion is the answer, which creates, the conflicts that we've seen, both you and I, that we feel passionately about because we witnessed the suffering. We've witnessed the pain of both men and women, men who failed to protect the life of their child and have deep regrets over it, as well as women who, during that time of crisis and fear, chose abortion because it's so widely available and it's considered health care. And, interesting thing, even about her question, she didn't answer the question. She just moved right into what Joe Biden believed when the question was, why does he support abortion when his own Catholic faith teaches that it's morally wrong? So this attack the questioner is a really skillful, manipulative form of deflection, where I'm not going to deal with what you just asked me because then I have to confront a conflict between the teaching and the faith that the Catholic, the president professes to be part of Catholic faith. And we know that it's, abortion is murder from Judeo-Christian beliefs across the board. Thou shalt not kill, and that abortion violates, the child's right to life, which is intrinsic because each person's made in the image of likeness of God. But that wasn't brought up. It's like what Joe Biden believes, not what the Catholic Church believes, but what does Joe Biden believe? He believes that, it's a woman's right to make this decision. And Joe Biden, I hate to say, has never been pregnant. He doesn't know what it feels like to have an abortion and suffer the devastating consequences, the suicides of family members, the division of men and women, the grieving, the addictions, the acting out, the multiple abortions. one after the other after the other. 50% of abortions in this country are repeat procedures. So if abortion is such a big solution, why do you go get pregnant again? This is about something else, Janet.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to stay on Joe Biden just for a minute. Recently, the Pope was on a plane coming back from a trip, and a reporter asked him about the church's teaching and politicians, and he said the church's teaching is clear: abortion is murder. I mean, he didn't get into the weeds too much about whether they should have communion or not. He said we should be pastoral, but he called it like it is. Abortion is murder. That's the church's teaching. That's God's teaching, because thou shalt not kill. And this is a scientific fact. It's a human being. So, the Pope was pretty clear that, and Joe Biden obviously is not practicing his Catholic faith as a faithful Catholic. But like you just said, she deflected. She didn't take on the question. She right away went on the attack mode to him. Well, you're a man, so you can't comment on this. I see two things going on here. First of all, she seemed pretty angry at him. Like
Irritated.
how dare you ask that question? Sometimes when I think, and you could again speak from your experience as a psychologist, when a woman gets that about this life issue, abortion, sometimes either they've had an abortion or someone that they know, like a sister, a relative, someone close to them, and they feel like, well, I have to defend this, or otherwise you're attacking me or my family member. What can you say about that dynamic?
Yeah, there's no dialogue. And actually, we know this and recognize it well as the fight or flight survival mode. Defend yourself at all costs, shut down the other side, do not allow a dialogue, because this is where abortion rights can almost be like a sacrament. We can't mess with this. We can't do anything to change it, because if we change it, it brings my abortion or the abortion I've encouraged my family members to have or paid for all under question. And then you have to face the moral injury and the spiritual injury, which we know wreaks havoc on people's lives, just as it does on soldiers who come back with all the PTSD from the moral injury, the sense of betrayal from authority figures who put them into these situations that, and not to mix subjects here, but it's recognized as part of post-traumatic stress disorder and complex trauma, this moral injury of violating the fundamental right to life, and it's putting you at war with your own body when you have to choose between your life and your child's. This creates a great disconnect, a complete state of conflict that can be denied for a while, suppressed, rationalized, defended. And that's what all this is about. That's what all the fight is about. That's what all the outrage is about. Outrage, because it's dangerous to face the truth when you haven't processed it, grieved it, or mourned it. It feels very dangerous. And anyone who brings it into question, has to be eradicated.
That's right. And then, of course, she attacks him because he's a man. That's the next part of her thing here. She didn't answer the question, and she had that fight or flight reaction. But then she attacks him as a man. Now we know just from all our work here in healing after abortion, that men hurt too, who are involved in abortion, aren't they? I mean, because of, well, first of all, with the guys, it's several things. Either they took the woman for the abortion, and so they're complicit with the death of their own child, or they tried to stop her and they have no rights, right? They can't stop her from having that abortion. Even if they don't want their child killed, they have no part. Or sometimes she goes off and has that abortion, and they find out maybe years later that they lost a child to abortion. So speak to some of that, Teresa, and the dynamic of the damage that this is to the man. So how dare you, Jen Psaki, tell him because he's a man, he doesn't know. There's plenty of men out there that can say, oh, I know. I participated in abortion and I deeply regret my lost fatherhood. But go ahead. You're the psychologist. You speak.
Let's again go back to his question. Again, evaded completely. But he said, who does he believe should look out for the unborn child? Shouldn't that be the father that can look out for the unborn child? Isn't it his right to defend the life of his child, why suddenly does usually a male doctor come in, not all the time, but historically, when all these, why should a doctor take the place of the man whose child it is, like aborting him from the picture? It's like nobody's allowed to be in there, but the people who are going to help her make the best decision, which is run by the abortion industry, $1 billion a year industry, and they don't want anybody cutting into that business, and so they're going to protect it. There's a financial profit, therefore we can say there's a conflict of interest always in selling abortions when it's not a family decision, when other alternatives, which are non-violent, that don't invade a woman's psychological and spiritual integrity, are not provided for her. The crisis pregnancy clinics, and by the way, we ran a maternity home for years, my husband and I. That's where we started Rachel's Vineyard. So yes, we know how difficult this is. Even supporting a woman in a crisis pregnancy, or one that's, she doesn't have the means, and that's where crisis pregnancy centers all over the world provide what they need, because I saw all these abortion-minded, women and even their partners, when they were given what they needed to make it not a crisis, whether it's housing. We gave computer job training. We worked with employers in the area. This is the kind of advocacy that should be done for women, so that we're respecting them as life givers and life bearers, and not putting the war in their very body that plays out in the world stage.
Right. But look at the men for just a minute. The guys, that really, they're not part of this abortion decision for the most part, or they have no rights, let's put it that way. If they advocated for the death of their child and told her, yeah, you better take care of it and have an abortion, we know, Teresa, that years later it comes back to haunt them, doesn't it? If they kind of said, go ahead, it's okay, have that abortion, right?
Well, it sure does. And it works its way out in a lot of depression, feeling powerless. A lot of men describe feeling that they've been castrated, like they didn't do their job. They're not a man. They feel that they sacrificed their child for something like some money concern, or abandonment, or the threats and the pressure that they put on. And yeah, they really suffer across the board in many different ways. It's not a simple thing, and sometimes it comes later. Like that PTSD, there can be a delayed response to it. And then, these are the people that I've worked with for 35 years. So I get engaged in their stories. All the people who work in Rachel's Vineyard, many are post-aborted. They're engaged in the reality of people's lives that I can't say Joe Biden is. He's never spent a weekend with Rachel's Vineyard or in a crisis pregnancy center. He's just advocating for what he believes, not the church and not the majority of Americans.
I mean, can you imagine, Teresa, if we could get Jen Psaki and President Biden there on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat weekend, for them to actually witness the damage and the fallout to abortion firsthand? Or then if we could then take the two of them and put them at a pregnancy resource center to say, here, look, this is what's really happened here. When women
this is
don't
what you
have
should be funding. This is what you should be
this
funding.
is where the money should be going, not to Planned Parenthood. I mean, so it's so interesting. But just to go back to the men for a minute, I know, in all our work with bringing the healing, and many times I know on Rachel's Vineyard retreat weekends, there'll be one or two men with the other women. And don't you find that the men, some people say, well, how come they're there with the women? Isn't that weird that they're trying to heal together? But what I see as experiencing is that it's a great moment, because so many of these women no longer have a relationship with the father of their aborted child. And so many of these guys, when they finally realize that they need help, they no longer are with that girlfriend from high school or college. And so coming together, I remember one retreat I was on where the guy stood up and he apologized to all the women. Like he said, your boyfriend or your husband isn't here, but on behalf of them, I am sorry that I pushed you into that abortion. I'm sorry I wasn't a man and stood up to help you and protect our child. I mean, that's like so healing, right, Teresa?
Well, it is healing. And, when I started Rachel's Vineyard, it was just for women. And quickly I brought in the men because I saw that as they healed, there wasn't a context for the men, and there's a huge hatred between the sexes because of this trauma. People don't realize it till they're grieving, but they just see a man and they're triggered. So this hatred toward men is healed. And you know what heals it, aside from the apology? And the apology comes because he had no idea. He was clueless, or when she was crying about it, he told her to get over it and move on, or he just ended the relationship so he didn't have to see it. um, but when women see men grieving and crying because they really believe in their heart of hearts that they don't give a crap about their feelings, that they don't care what they went through, that whatever their pressured stance was, is more important than that woman's feelings or validating her reality. And this is where you see all these triangles of abuse, like he pushes her into something, but then he doesn't want to help her in the aftermath. So the anger and the war between the sexes, the hatred of men is healed, and women leave the retreat when men are on it and they thank them because they say that my belief in men has been restored by this weekend, by listening to you speak, by watching you cry. And it's so healing for the women to see the men cry. And when they get up to read their letters to the lost children, and sometimes they have to stop reading, they're overcome with grief. And this is the kind of grief that we don't see on TV and all these fights and, women knows best. And, come see women with their doctors after the abortion. Come see them, struggling with depression and anxiety and suicidality and feeling they don't deserve to be a mother ever again, and being in these traumatic cycles of repeats and shaming themselves, and the anger and the rage and the hatred of themselves and of other people. So it's really damaging to our culture. It's damaging to a mother's heart and a father's heart, and it's damaging later when they struggle with the injury and the guilt and the shame.
Yeah. And of course, Teresa, we know, like you just pointed out, by their stories, both from Rachel's Vineyard and Silent No More, that immediately following that abortion, they're taken into some other room, sit in a bunch of recliners, given cookies and juice. And so many of them are sitting there either numb, eyes down, they can't look at each other, they're crying. It would be very interesting for these advocates of abortion, these people like, Biden, Psaki, and all the Democratic Party really that love abortion so much. I challenge them, stand outside of an abortion clinic on a Saturday when the women are coming out after their abortion, and look at how they look. They don't look like happy, like, oh, that problem's over. Whew, oh, thank God. Oh, I got my freedom of choice. Hallelujah. They don't look like that. And I guarantee you, if they could even start a conversation with them, they would see so many of them experience, from what I've been told by them, that regret with some of them happens almost instantaneously. In fact, some of them, it happened on the table while the procedure was happening, and they asked them to stop. Right, Teresa?
Yeah, no, the heartache is unbelievable. And you're right, they do come out in numbness. And we've just heard so many descriptions of that moment of freeze because you're so overwhelmed with the reality of what's happened, and they want to jump, but they're in that freeze state of trauma. And a lot of other women just feel it was more brutal than rape. They describe feeling gutted like a fish. They describe wanting to throw up endlessly that night, not because they're sick, but they want to rid themselves of, their insides that have been scraped out. It's like the suctioning out of their own heart. So they leave many big parts of themselves behind on the abortion table, and people speak in these terms. So when we look at freedom of choice, will it be more, this is like ancient tribal mutilations of women when you disconnect them in their very body from their children, and disconnect the children from the fathers.
So, Teresa, if someone's watching right now, and let's say someone says, gee, a friend of mine confided in me recently, they had an abortion, and I can see their behavior has changed, and I don't know what to say to them. And I don't know how to even tell them that there's help available, because they just blurt it out to me. Well, I had an abortion, and then they move on, and that's all they're going to say. But there's so many people out there that know someone that they feel needs help, but they don't know how to approach them to even bring up the subject to help get them to Rachel's Vineyard or to find help. What can you say to that? What should they do? Like, what are some pointers?
Well, I don't think anyone wants to be told that what's wrong with them. But I think inviting them or acknowledging that this happened and you know that they were hurt over it from the way they said it, and it's hard for them to speak of, and that they deserve healing, that they're a good person, and anything that you could do to help them get to a retreat, give it to them as a gift certificate. A lot of people do that because it's that they're worthy and they deserve to heal, and that this is the life that God invites them to. Like, I came that you might have life and have it to the full. People aren't living a full life when they're suffering from the trauma of abortion, and they don't even realize that they deserve that because they feel it was their choice. So I think the education about abortion as a trauma, legitimizing that, hearing the stories of other women, inviting them to look at the possibility of what their life could be like if they could relieve themselves of the burden that they carry. And they've carried it because if you're close to them and you love them, you see the symptoms all over. You can't miss them. The addictions and the eating disorders and the workaholism and the fear of children and not being able to go to showers. And, we could both go on about how that manifests itself. And it is insidious. It's pervasive throughout so many levels of the life. People thought it was just about an abortion, and yeah, it's a hard time. Like she says, you don't know how difficult it is. Well, yeah, let's look at how difficult it is. Stop having these speeches with Biden where you defend his belief and talk about how difficult it is. And that's why groups like Silent No More are so important, because there's the testimony, and you've done such a beautiful job of collecting thousands of them that really speak to what is it like to try to recover? What does that dark place look like? Picture it for us, explain it for us. Let us feel it with you. And you feel when you hear someone's story, because it's not a news brief. It's the story of their life and all the people around them that were impacted, and how they struggled to carry on through a lot of hideous symptoms.
Well, and of course, at Rachel's Vineyard, you have a beautiful website, rachelsvineyard.org. Again, that's rachelsvineyard.org. And from there, first of all, they can find out where the nearest retreat is to them by their zip code and their city and location. But also, too, Teresa, I know there's a beautiful message from you inviting them to come and get that healing. And there's a safe place there where they could just send an email if they have a question. Sometimes you can encourage that family member to say, you know what, I'm not telling you have to go on this retreat, but if you want to just ask a question, you can send an email. Plus, you have a hotline number. They can call and talk to somebody. What's your hotline number, Teresa?
It's 1-877-HOPE-FOR-ME. And every site out there has counselors and participants who are happy to take their call if they want to ask questions about it or get more information. But, life is short, Janet, and COVID brings that reality to us more than ever. And to reconcile that event, to move forward in peace, there's no time like today. There's no time to waste, because there's a full life that you have to come back to.
And of course, I know for just this months of the fall, September, October, I think close to 60 retreats are going to happen. And so there's retreats opening all the time, and there's dates even going into the future. There's retreats happening, I know, in December, and they're booking them into next year. So there's plenty of retreats out there, brothers and sisters. So we hope you can go to rachelsvineyard.org or have that family member call the hotline, 877-HOPE-FOR-ME, and reach out, because we're here for you. Because like you said, Teresa, there's no such thing as unforgivable sin, and no one here is to condemn. Very often I think the other side paints us in the pro-life movement, so to speak, as against these women or that have had abortions. And if anything, no, we're the ones who are here picking up the fallout and reaching that hand of mercy and forgiveness to get them the help they need. So I want to thank you, Teresa, for joining me today. Another lively discussion on the topic. And maybe Jen Psaki will tune in one day and get informed. Wouldn't that be a miracle? Right? That would be great. So thank you, Teresa. God bless, and let's hope more people find healing. At again, like your motto says, dealing with the pain of abortion one weekend at a time. And let's hope some more people get to those weekends real soon. So thanks and God bless.
Okay, God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, brothers and sisters, I hope you got a lot of information today that you see we're not against women who've had abortions. There are better choices out there. And that for those who've had abortions, we're here for you. Reach out today, go to rachelsvineyard.org, and also call that hotline, 877-HOPE-FOR-ME. We're here for you. Until next time, this is Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Thank you, and God bless.